Guys, my name's Brad. I'm gonna call these videos Bonsai Brad. I might just do the one video in the end, depending on the feedback. But what I wanted to do is walk through my recent education when it comes to bonsai, how much I don't know yet because I'm very new to this hobby, and just talk about what I got growing. So this is my backyard. It's nothing too exciting here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I do have a couple of plants that I'm looking at right now. Basically, I started getting into bonsai, let's see, this April 2018, as I was preparing to go out to California and visit the Redwood forest. I've always had a passion for trees and vegetation in general, but I started reading The Secret Life of Trees. If you haven't picked up that book and read it, and you're into nature at all, it's fascinating. It teaches you a lot about trees, how they communicate, how they support each other. And so as I was getting ready to go out to the Redwood forest in Humboldt County, spent about a week out there alone, just hiking and enjoying those magnificent giants, I started to want to add to my bonsai collection and start to learn more about it. And as I've dove deeper into everything that is bonsai, I just realized more and more how little that I know. I'll get into the Dawn Redwoods that I purchased and how I thought I'll just plant that in a small container and call it a bonsai. There's just so much that we need to get into. So anyway, the first bonsai that I got was about 5 years ago, and it was this ficus here that you see. This is a pretty standard ficus that you see that you can purchase, right? It's been trunk chopped. If you look over here at the side, you can see that it's been trunk chopped on the side, and then you've got some new growth, and that's what they give you essentially. My parents bought this for me from Costco. When they gave it to me, it was in a container that was not sufficient for bonsai growing, and right off the bat you got to recognize drainage. I didn't pay too much attention to this tree, this ficus, initially. I just left it in the existing container, and you can see right off the bat I got a lot of rot. So if you see that right there, that used to be something that obviously extended down and was part of the tree and part of a healthy tree, but it ended up rotting so much that I had to take it off. So yeah, right, you can see right here I dug this out a little bit. I do plan on carving this out a little bit more next spring and potentially replanting this again, but you can see I put it into this a little bit more reasonable container this year, and it's doing a lot better. I mean, you look at all the new growth here. I've made some cuts. If you take a look at the new growth, it's looking really, really nice. A lot of new green growth. And I don't really know how I'm going to style this yet. Again, I'm very new to bonsai. But I do have some great Nibari potential here if these roots will grow in a little bit. I love the way that it looks. This is obviously the front of the tree with these big bulges just adding to the shape. I love the way these roots come down around the edge. And obviously the back of the tree, we need to heal up a little bit. We need to fix this, carve that out a little. These roots coming down hopefully grow and eventually will make it look a little smoother, but it doesn't really matter since this is the front of the tree. The question is going to be the final styling, as with any bonsai. So that's one of my ficuses that I have. Another ficus is back here. This is a Ficus Nerofilia, and we've done some work on this one. This is what I purchased in May, along with the Juniper that you'll see here in a minute. This one has some good potential for Nibari. If you look at all this growth, I don't know if you can tell with the contrast with the bonsai soil, the stone here, but this is all going to grow in really nice. We've got a nice base growth here. Got to carve this out and have that heal up a little bit. I'm not satisfied with the thickness of this long term, so you know, I do like this tree. I've got one leader up here, the apex, that I trimmed away and started to encourage to come up here. This is a tree that really likes warmth, so we're gonna have to see how it survives this winter. Here in Michigan, we've got, you know, excuse me, January tends to be 20 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit, so obviously I'm gonna have to take this indoors along with the Juniper. This ficus here does live indoors exclusively, actually. Very, very healthy again, but anyway, this is my other one. From a ficus perspective, I've got some moss hanging on there. I don't know what this final styling is going to look like, but I do like this tree. I think we just need to probably plant it into one of the wash basins that I purchased, which is the same thing I'm going to do with the Juniper. But if we can get this planted with a little bit more root space, if you will, I think that we can thicken up this trunk and really have it grow a little bit more and then work on our final styling. But this is extremely healthy at this point. Very happy with the way that this has grown. So I'm going to take this ficus out and plop another one in just so we can look at some of the other trees that I've got going. The first one being the juniper here. This is one that I bought from the same garden center nursery, and this is a healthy looking tree. It's an emerald juniper. It doesn't love the heat. I kept it out here in this space, which it gets some shade from this big maple, but other than that, it's a little intense. So I've been just focusing on morning sun on the other side of the house. This has a lot of potential for sure. I do like it. I want to encourage this to come out. I want to encourage this other branch on the side to come out. I'm not going to do a lot of trimming on this initially. For right now, I think we're just going to let this grow. Same kind of situation. This is the same container that I planted, not planted, but purchased it in. So I think we'll put this into a wash basin, something similar, to have the trunk get a little bit bigger, right? I don't like these smaller bonsai. I want to thicken that up a little bit and get it to obviously have an apex come up this way and then start to branch out a little bit and become a bigger bonsai. But I do love this juniper. It's got some beautiful new growth all over the place. It's fall, so obviously we got to get this inside soon. It can handle some cold weather, but probably in the November time frame we'll get it indoors. Really like the potential of this juniper. So those are really the three kind of more mature bonsais that I have right now. They're still not there though. That's something that you continue to learn with bonsai. You want thickness over time. So you don't want a skinny tree in a small container. You want to let those roots grow. So with that said, I planted quite a few bonsai seeds. I got some bonsai kit where you can germinate your own seeds. And you've got to understand that that's going to take 5 to 10 years potentially. You want to really let that grow, and even this kind of container long term is going to be too small. This is a Delonix Regia. It's a flame tree, part of the bonsai kit that I got, and this is starting to get some firmness, some wood. This is a fascinating tree. I love the way that it grows. Very random. It's got these big leaflets that grow out. These things actually close up at night. They close up for the cold. This does not like cold. Very similar to the ficus over here. I'm gonna have to get this indoors once nights drop below 55 degrees, which is happening right now in the fall. But this is just from seed, and we probably planted this in the June time frame, so this is not even a season of growth, and it's really doing quite well at this point. I think it's gonna be beautiful. If I can keep it alive over the winter, that's gonna be the question with many of my trees. How do I manage winter care? And that's something I've got to learn about. But this is a very, very healthy looking tree so far. And we're optimistic about where this one can go. So cool tree there, flame tree. And then the other one I wanted to show, which is, again, these are the most mature trees. Hilarious. This one's only, what, a couple months old. This is a red maple, I believe, that was harvested from my parents' house nearby in Grand Rapids. Got definitely some wood. It's clearly been cut back because it doesn't have a clear leader. These 4 or 5 up here just burst and budded. You can kind of see in the middle there. I'm not sure how well you can tell, but in here it was just a couple of side leaves, and just recently it's starting to produce what potentially will be one of the apexes. But I like the potential of this tree. This is much too small of a container long term. We're actually going to put this in the ground and let it grow long term, but for this season we just wanted it to establish some roots. So if you take a look down here, we can actually see that there is a root coming out the bottom, which means it's a healthy tree. That's the case for many of these. We've got some roots coming out the bottom of the flame tree as well. But we're going to see where this one goes. I think long term the red maple is a tree that does allow for those leaves to be miniaturized, if you will, if you trim it back over time. So that's going to be a nice tree long term, but we've got 5-6 years yet before that trunk's going to be thick enough to where we want to make some chops and start to turn that into a bonsai. So anyway, with that said, let's go out back. Marley, hey, come on, pup, come get a treat. Good girl. I do want to show you guys my Dawn Redwoods. I'm obsessed with redwood trees. This is a young Dawn Redwood, and just to give you a conceptual understanding of what a potential bonsai would be, the Dawns are just beautiful. If you're not familiar with the Dawn Redwood, it's an absolutely beautiful tree. It's a deciduous tree, so it can survive here in Michigan. Because it loses its leaves every year. It's a deciduous species, one of the 3 types of redwoods, metasequoia. So this trunk right here is actually more about the size. This would be actually starting to get a little bit too big for a bonsai, but this is the idea, right? When I first started learning about bonsai, I thought, well, I'll get a couple of seedlings and plop them into a small container. No, that's not how it works. You want to let that naturally grow and get big as a trunk, and then you want to actually trunk chop it. So if I was to turn this into a bonsai, we would probably make a cut right in here, and we would actually trunk chop it entirely. We'd dig out the roots, and we get it into like a wash basin container to give it a little bit more room, and then we would have shoots growing out from the sides after maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And then what we would do is we'd take one of those shoots and bend it up, wire it, and then eventually that becomes your new leader, and then you get a taper that looks like an actual full-size tree. So even that concept alone is something that I've had to research and learn and understand, that that's how you create a bonsai tree. It's not by just starting a seedling in a container and it magically becomes a beautiful tapered trunk, right? This is my other Dawn Redwood. This one's been through a lot. You can see I've got a wire going over to the tree over there. And that's because what happened with this one is it actually was in an ice storm, and the main trunk, you can't really tell, but there's not a lot growing on that main trunk up there. If you look up that way, that entire side got bent over. So the entire tree, I came outside, it was down towards the ground. The apex was down towards the ground, frozen in place. So I took a hairdryer and I heated it and tried to straighten it up, but it's looking better over time, I would say. This tree is about 10 years old at this point. It's got a lot of potential, but the problem is I get a lot of west winds, and so we're trying to keep that apex up there straight. This tree's got a lot of potential, but you know, it's been through some trauma at this point. So let's go into the front yard and look at some of the younger trees that I ordered. Some of these seedlings I got from California.